doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Found a box in the garage. Up in Centralia. I haven't seen in a while. This is 3/8 ounce JROD Jig box. So JROD jigs, I'm not going to do a video about JROD jigs, but I owned a jig company, and that sounds like, ooh, you owned a big company. No, I started making jigs in the Ozarks back in the 90s. When I was a little kid, in the 80s, everybody made jigs. If you went to any big fisherman's house, they hand-tied jigs. So it's kind of something that we grew up with here in the Ozarks. This is the original JROD jig. Now you're gonna look at the head design and go, ooh, that's nothing special. In the 90s, it was a little bit different, but I worked with a mold maker, and I'll have to look up. I can see it in my head right now, but I can't remember the name. But I think it was Collins Molds. Anyway, he was one of the first guys that had a website where you could start working with him to get a custom mold made. Now there's a lot of places you could get molds made. There was, down by Jewel, there happened to be a place down the road from there in Arkansas that you could talk to them and get a mold made. There was Hook Solutions here in central Missouri, I think over by Warsaw. They could work with you to figure out hooks and then molds. And then these guys started popping up on the internet. So you would get on customtackleunderground.com, and then you would start working with them to figure out what you wanted. That was the start of it for me. And it was expensive. If you had an idea, it was going to cost you quite a bit of money to get something made and then get into production. So the difference between this one is I could put a flat eye hook in it. I could put anything from a 27 degree or 30 degree. I could still fit it in my mold with modifications. And then I could do anything from a light wire to an extremely heavy wire. And then there was other tricks that I used to still have a flat line tie, and then use a big grass hook, because I could make this. Eventually I had 3 or 4 molds to where I could make this jig from 1/8 to, I believe, 1.5 ounces. So I had every stop of the way, so I could custom make the jig the way people wanted for the situation they were in. So I thought at the time it was a jig that covered all bases, and of course I could put any color on it. I could put rubber, silicone. I'm a hand tire. I like thread way more than copper wire or floral wire or any other wire. I like thread. I think it's more natural. I can do more things with the skirt. I can add colors better. And then it is not ever coming off, especially if you get a good material. You can see that this is probably Skirts Plus. And I have a lot of Skirts Unlimited. But then I had a mold made that I could put my eyes in. The reason I liked eyes is because I caught more fish on jigs with eyes. Crawdads have eyes, but they're dark. They got the little balls on top of their head. I think when you're imitating a crawfish, eyes do not matter. But bass are opportunistic. If they see a big shad with big eyes, I think it triggers them to at least think it's more natural. If I have a bluegill around docks, I think it's more natural. I think if there's sun perch, sunfish up around the rocks, I think it's more natural. So having the eyes helps. Have I caught a million of them without eyes? Yes. Do I think that they really study it that hard if you're getting a reaction bite? No, I don't think they care if it has eyes on it. But those times where fishing pressure is tough, if I'm in a grass situation where I know there's a lot of floating bluegill around, they're floating around, I see a lot of bluegill in the area, I like eyes. This situation, I have a red and black, so all my buddies in Louisiana, this is just a dynamite jig anywhere. If you hold this up to the light, you'll see that that red in there is more of a chameleon red, meaning it's not see-through, but it's a more of a translucent red that matches the red and black eyes. When certain sunfish get up there and try to spawn, their eyes turn red. So that red kind of imitates a lot of things. Gill plates, injuries, just could really just make a fish interested. So I made a jig mold with eyes. A lot of that also is the old timers that wanted eyes in their jigs. There was some of the best fishermen in Texas that would only throw jigs with eyes. Some people are going to say, well, that's dumb. Crawfish don't have eyes. You don't need eyes on a jig. Okay, well, most of our Arkies, I don't know if I have any. Let me see. There's a hand-tied Arkie that's used. Got some tarantula skirt in it. Most of my Arkies and most people that make a really good skipping jig don't have eyes. That's fine. This was just something that was different at the time. And I say at the time because this mold got popular and a lot of jig companies ended up coming out. Some called it a brush jig, some called it different things. And so you had this head out, but in a lot of jigs, but you didn't have eyes in it. So I had something different at that time. That's late 90s, early 2000s. That's from when I transitioned from living in Missouri to living in Texas. That covered a big gap in the market, and that's how JROD Jigs lifted off and really took hold and kept me busier and busier and busier to the point of I did not want to make jigs anymore. I still make some jigs, but not like we did in the early 2000s. It was completely chaos. We made jigs after work. I was in the military. I would get stuff shipped to me when we were deployed, and then I bought shipping. I didn't, have no special place in the Connex. Once we had FPOs, that's places you can ship mail. Once we got those set up in Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, different places we were at, I could get material, and then Barlow's would ship to me. So that was great. Still paying for shipping and getting that stuff out there so I could hand tie when I had time. Now painting was a problem. I could do a little bit of powder coating. I could get the glue and I could get it through customs, and I could do the whole 9 yards. Now we could not melt lead and then pour. So I would have to figure out how to get the heads. That became a huge issue. But anyway, JROD Jigs went down the line. And then it turned into JJ Tackle. We had that for a few years, and we sold everything that a dealer would sell to us because we did not have a brick and mortar store. We only had online websites, and then Facebook developed and Instagram developed to where we were selling 80% online. That includes eBay, and then we would sell to tackle stores and individuals. I liked the individual sales the best because you got to interact with people that were on the water all the time, interact with guides, interact with people that they were telling you the patterns that were going on at the time. So you knew when you got an order of 50 of these bad boys, it wasn't something that someone was just BSing about. It was, this is going on and it's going on now. So for lakes that I never fished in Texas, like LBJ, Buchanan, Waco, Whitney, all the way down to Amistad, Falcon, Choke, the Triangle was popping off at the early 2000s. It was insane. So somebody got on a hot color, somebody was giving you feedback on what hook worked the best, somebody was telling you which trailers they were throwing, and between me and them, that's as far as it went. So I love that aspect of making jigs and making tackle. It was awesome. Made lots of great friends, still have all those friends to this day, and I love that part of it. Today, I don't know, I don't have time for it. I don't know that you have that special bond with custom tackle makers as you did if they are putting that product on the website, they are talking about it. You don't have the secrecy, kind of like we did back then. So nothing bad, it's just it wasn't quite the same. If you have something made from a plastic maker and then they end up using it to sell, if that's the goal, great. I'm sure that a lot of that goes on now. It's just, it's not quite the same with everybody's got a Shopify account, they have an online store. Everybody can sell easily on the internet through Facebook, eBay, Instagram. In that time frame, you know, just say year 2000, not a lot of people had that. So getting someone to make something custom for you was pretty easy if you found somebody, but that information getting out there wasn't quite as easy, I guess you could say. But these days, everybody's doing YouTube videos like now, like I'm doing right now. Everybody is posting pictures. What happened to me eventually is a lot of the colors we were making got knocked off. Strike King, you guys did it. Falcon Crawl, we had the Falcon Crawl going hot. I mean hot. I don't know if I've got, this is a 3/8 ounce box, so I probably don't have a lot of Falcon Crawl because we went to Falcon, we weren't using 3/8, so you could catch them on 3/8, but that's pretty close to a Falcon Crawl. That's not my Falcon Crawl, but that's pretty close. And Dirty Jigs also made a color that I could argue that once someone got a hold of that color, they made it Falcon Crawl. I forgot what his was called, but I will say I got an inspiration and ideas from that and then made my own Falcon Crawl. Because what happened was we were at Falcon, we had tons of crawdads being spit up in the live well, and then I matched. So what we did a lot, and I still do it to this day, is we trapped a lot of crawdads. When you're guiding, you sometimes use live bait, But we're trapping crawdads for mainly the purpose of getting the crawdads and then matching the hatch. What you'll find out is there's so many different crawdad colors, you'll have to make 100 different jig combinations to match all the crawdads. Stillhouse Hollow, Central Texas, there's a crawdad that is green pumpkin, has orange, it has red, and it has a lot of purple in it. That color that I tried to match never worked very good. There's certain colors that are mainstays, like green pumpkin orange. Black and blue's a little bit, but more of a tan and bluish. They're black and reds, stuff like that. So we would trap a lot to use bait, and then we would trap to match the hatch. So it's getting hot enough in Missouri now. This is a great time of year right now to put those out, put the traps out, and see how active the crawfish are. Because once you start catching a lot in a certain depth, you know the jigs are about to play really big, and you can start matching the hatch. Sometimes there's a molt going on right now, a molting where they shed their old shell off and they get a new one, and then there's a green pumpkin and a bright orange. I mean bright. Doesn't even matter if you're in Clearwater, Bull Shoals, or Norfolk, Table Rock, here at Lake of the Ozarks, etc., where that crawfish is really, really bright in the pinchers. Sometimes even the little ones are all orange. That will not last very long. I think the good Lord gave them sense enough to get that bright orange and get some new shell on, because they, one, easily can be seen. They're soft and they are bass candy at that point. If you time that right, your wiggle warts and your jigs, etc., with that bright orange is absolutely crazy. Let me show you something. Got this at the boat show and I can't wait to try it. Speaking of orange and cold water, TB Custom Baits. Speaking of orange, golly, look at that. He makes a green crawdad with an orange belly too, but that's what I'm talking about. This isn't bright orange, but just that yellowy brown with some orange. Oh my gosh. I wish I had more time to play with this. The Toyota series is coming up and I don't want to lose this. I'm going to put it in my box for the tournament. But that's an example. Let me see. It's one color that I need to restock up on, because even in this 3/8 box, I don't have any green pumpkin orange, no brown and orange. So I need to find some. MML Lures is now tying some bass jigs. If you ask for it, there's a 3/8, but I might ask for him to make a color like this with brown barbed wire and then put orange barbed wire, burnt orange barbed wire. Great color. This one's got light chartreuse with green gourd. That's a special barbed wire, and then purple, and then it's really short like this. I probably saved some skirt material on that. That's fine. That's probably like that so I can use a small trailer and it leaves room for the either a double-tailed grub or a critter crawl, whatever, and then I would definitely cut that down. That's the angle I like. I don't like it on the hook, and I don't like it up here. I like it in between, right there. And I will cut it. We'll cut this. This is way short. We're gonna find a trailer that matches good. This has a thicker weed guard than I would usually put in this jig, but for some reason somebody had wanted a stiffer weed guard that time where I was pouring those. But I want it like that, but here's the, not a trick, but this is what I like to do. Just past the hook barb. I'm not going to cut it. I'm gonna show you what I wouldn't do first. Not cut it back here, and I would not cut it straight across. Not cut it like that. Now that will work great. And that will also do a good job of being a fish guard and not a weed guard. And then also, I'm not throwing this in weeds and grass. Maybe just a little bit if I get way up in the river where there are some coontail here at the lake. We do have lily pads. It's March. None of that is playing right now. Unless I got into Hahatonka and I found a lot of milfoil and coontail. I don't have to worry about that here. I want brush and rock guards. This will stiffen the weed guard just the way I want it. And I will go barely past the hook tip and I will cut it off even with the top of the hook shaft. This is a round bend, so it's a little bit easier. I used other bends. There's O'Shaughnessy, there's EWG, there's different bends that I will cut it at a different angle. But with this round head, that is right where I want it. And if you have it stick up there, so I have lighter, 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 stiffer. And it is even with that to where when I pull, when he grabs it and pushes down, it barely keeps me from getting hung up, but gives me a good gap to where I'm going to hook the fish also. I want them to grab it and crush it. When he does that, I've got him. I've got him. See it sticking on my, just barely sticking on my skin? I have got him. One, that's a good hook. Gamakatsu. Two, I've got my weed guard exactly where I want it. If I went above that, that doesn't happen. If I go below that, I'm not doing anything. I might as well pull the weed guard out. So that's the way I like to do it. Perfectly even. That's the way I want my weed guard. So, definitely messed up, but I made for myself. That, I got the idea from Kurt Walker. No, this isn't the exact color that he made. It's pretty close. You can see where I kind of messed up on the paint. This is a cone head jig. A little bit lighter of a weed guard, kind I like. Medium light hook. And then there's an original JROD jig. Got some tarantula skirt in that. This isn't watermelon candy. That is a special color, and you see that hook. That hook is a sea wash hook. It is very thick. Another Strike King deal that they caught on to. I'm not gonna say copy. Companies make things better. Companies might call them a copy or knockoff. They make things better. Strike King has their fluorocarbon grass jig. They have a swim jig. The Hack Attack was first made with a sea wash. That's a lot based off the Odom jigs, grass jigs. So I wanted a very thick hook sometimes in the grass also because we're using braid, 65 and 80 pound braid a lot. 65 is perfect. Talking big fish down there in the grass. Some of the hydrilla were like trees. Then we got zebra mussels in some lakes. So 80 pound was very popular. If you throw an 80-pound or 65-pound braid on this hook, it will straighten out. Took a long time for guys down there to get on this jig because they like this hook. They overpowered the hook with heavy line and then wanted this hook and this. That doesn't really work. So jigs like this, you can use braid and get them out with the grass. Plus this hook design, head design was awesome. Comes through grass and this comes through everything, but the striking one, what I tried for years to perfect and never got there, was a jig like this with a 0 degree line tie. I wanted a straight shaft, and I believe that they figured it out. I know Dirty Jigs figured it out, but it was an inline tie versus a flat. I wanted a flat, and when you're in grass, I don't think that the inline tie hurts you, so I like it better in the grass. And I think the hookup ratio on a 0 degree hook is better than a 30 degree or a 27 degree. The only way that you get enough data by yourself is to get to a lake like Fayette County, or here in Missouri, if you go to some of these smaller lakes, or when the bite's really, really, really good and you're catching 30 plus keepers a day, and you do a tally sheet. And I think like at Falcon one day, I was comparing the flat eye to an inline eye, and I think I missed 4 or 5 fish that I could contribute to having an inline eye versus a flat. So 3 or 4 out of 100. I don't think it was that big of a difference. But if you're in a situation where they're not biting the jig good, or they're not getting it, and that, I do think the flat eye hooks them better in the roof of the mouth than the inline eye tie, but that's for a different video. I'm all over the place. I'm just jabbering along. But I thought that was pretty cool. Finding the old JROD jig box. I don't know a lot about the Fritz sides and the oranges. Look at that, but that's playing right now. Can't wait for the Toyota series to get here because my boat's been in the shop and I get to go fishing finally. Oh, it's beautiful here. It was nasty yesterday and today is beautiful again. JROD Jigs. I loved that company. I loved doing it. My purple got a little melted. These jigs have been around the world. I probably hand tied that in Afghanistan. That puffy type finesse jig is a Kurt Walker jig. I made this, but all got taught by Kurt Walker to do that. Pouring, using Devcon 2T to glue the weed guards in. That's a Dirk Slider thing. Learned that in his garage with him. How to paint properly, how to get the weed guard on there at a good angle. This one's way too far up. That's a mess up. That one's not bad. These became up for some reason. I'd rather them be way up there than way down here, but that'll work. I'll get them trimmed up. I'll still use it. Might even pull it out and not even use a weed guard. But I have to give credit to Dirk and to Kurt. And then Curtis DeMerith with Dirty Jigs. We were on the phone together a lot, every day for a long time. Just talking on the phone. You saw how far Dirty Jigs went before he sold to Nichols, and now they're still using all his colors, all his head designs, his hooks, his across the board based on his expertise. I became better because of those guys on the jig making journey. If I'd have done it by myself without feedback from them, I would not have been as successful and I would not have made as good of a jig, I promise you. So they get the credit. I just kind of put together their ideas and then molded that all together for the JROD jig. But don't even try, I don't even try to do them anymore. So not taking orders. Now there are way too many jig makers that are just as good and beyond and way better. So if I wanted something like I used to make, depends on what it is, but if I wanted a hand-tied round head jig, I would go to Blue Rock Custom Tackle with Jesse French. I would go to Dirty Jigs and find one that is similar. You might have to go to Nichols Lures to find Dirty Jigs now. You would go to Strike King. Wasn't trying to badmouth Strike King. I'm just saying certain colors became very popular after other companies were coming out with them. Black and Blue Smoke. That was anyway. I would go to Strike King now, and I would get the Hack Attack jigs. I would get some of the Structure Bug Juniors. It's one that a lot of people don't throw, but people like Trey McKinney, some of the pros, they're making a lot of money off like Structure Bug Juniors, Structure Jig Juniors instead of the big Structure Bug. Their Structure Jig is based off a lot of those Texas style hooks that I'm talking about with 0 degrees, and it's a good all-around jig too because it's a flipping jig, a football jig, a structure jig, a grass jig all in one. It's got a flat line tie. I like Hack's fluorocarbon grass jig, and I like Hack's grass jig. So you need to look at how big of a hook do I want, what colors do I want, etc. Other good websites to go to. This is one of the reasons I'm out of it too, is there's now I'm not filling a gap anymore, not filling a void. So Battle Baits, LureNet or Fishing Lures Online, the one that has Bill Lowen's custom jigs where you can get the heads and the skirts. That's a great one. Barlow's, that's a great one. You can get heads and match. Barlow's for 30 years has had their skirts already pre-made in certain colors, like I call it PB&J salsa. That's not what they call it, but it's a PB&J with like copper fleck in it. Unbelievable color. They have a watermelon that's unbelievable, and they have a black and blue that's unbelievable. Apex Tackle is above and beyond anybody here locally. I'm not trying to hurt feelings there. We have a lot of jig makers here. Motion Fishing is terrific. They have more of the rubber and tinsel that I'm looking for that I can't find anywhere else. So I usually lean on Bobby for rubber and tinsel. He doesn't really know that, but that's where I go and grab rubber and tinsel. Jewel Bait Company, they make and have always made some of the best round heads. They have other heads that are specific to things, like they have a flipping jig with a J-lock trailer keeper that I used whenever I want to use a jig with no skirt, and then I just put a D-bomb or some kind of Bojangle creature bait on it. I can skip jigs with those and not have to worry about it coming off. And then I also use Crocagator's J-lock head too. It's like a poison head with a J-lock. So here locally, Crocagator, amazing jigs. I just use certain ones for certain situations. Like we're talking about the round head finesse, but then when they want finesse and a bulkier jig, I want the zapper jig. When I do that is bigger than finesse, not as big as a big bulky, regular flipping jig. Apex tackle covers the gamut in that department with, something with a heavier hook if you want it. Jewel has HD series if you want it, so you have finesse plus HD, a heavy duty that you want to use bigger line. So Apex tackle, he's got the Andy Newcomb jig. That's a side category of jigs to where you have to reach out to those companies and find them, because they're not just, if you go on Tackle Warehouse and just go through the jigs, unless you know specifically what you're looking for, that's a side category that gets overlooked. There's an Anarchy jig. That's what I'm talking about. Those little categories that are dynamite. That stuff I'm hesitating even talking about. There's a 1099 jig. 1099 jig from Blue Rock. That's the kind of stuff where we're out of the finesse. We're not in the big grass. We are right in the middle. Dock flipping laydowns. 15-pound test instead of 20, 22, 25. That 14, 15, maybe 17-pound test range. We're not 7.6, 65-pound braid, but we're not 6'10" Falcon Eakins jig rod. You see what I'm saying? We're 7 foot, 7'3", Dobbin 735, 15-pound test, 3/0, 4/0 hook, stout, not light wire, medium heavy hook. That type of stuff. That stuff gets me excited. That should be a side category video that should be all by itself. But anyway, JROD jigs, it rose and it fell based off time. There's no way to keep up with it. If you get good at it, you can make a full-time job out of it, and you will fight yourself to death keeping up with the orders. And there's not enough time in the day if you have a family or if you have a fishing obsession like I do. And that's anything across the board. So if you're working at Walmart, stocking shelves, and then fill in jig company, it just doesn't, you'll burn yourself out. I literally burned myself out. When I was single with no kids, when I was married with no kids, my wife and I, we loved making them. It was fun. When it became not fun, you could tell throughout the years that that's not fun anymore. We're going to have to slow down, or I eventually just killed it. I dissolved a JJ tackle a couple years ago. It gives you a relief like you're retiring, and it also a sadness of, now I'm not talking to so-and-so in Japan about this cool jig that he wants from America, or that'll spark conversations of lures that they want that they can't get as good. So they would jump on my eBay store and we would go back and forth. I would send them wiggle boards, spooks. They would send me crazy plastics, and it all sparked from the jig company. So I miss that part of it. I don't miss pouring lead. I don't miss tying 100 at a time. I don't miss working your butt off for certain clients and then getting zero feedback. You finally get a hold of them and they say, oh, I didn't like this. Well, why didn't you tell me that? I don't enjoy that. I don't like doing thousands of jigs and then nothing, no feedback, or, oh, those were awesome, I need more. But now, you know, it's, anyway, I enjoy the interaction and the communication, not the completely wear yourself down and then no feedback. But that's where JROD Jigs went. This box sparked that kind of, sparked the old memories, I guess. You ever seen an Arky with the rattles hand tied into the shaft? The only problem with that is with the trailer, but you put a chunk on it. Just put a chunk. Anyway, I need to go fishing. Let's do that.